Ever so much for this sort of short notice of this, but I just felt I wanted your voice because there's so much going on at the moment this week with everything that's going on in the US, where it'll start, where it's all kicking off, but all around the world there have been protests and a focus in schools, and there's a huge buzz on Twitter about we've got to do something. We've got to get things better than they are at the moment. So I wanted your perspective, just if you could just tell the people looking at this just a little bit about your background, how you grew up, where you grew up, and then also because you're in a position where you can really, from an education point of view, which is your thing, you can really look at the US stuff and the UK stuff. And what I want to work towards is what you think we in education in the UK, bearing in mind that how much of education is white middle class, what we can do in order to just move things on and change things and make things better, so we don't have these awful sort of situations kicking off time and time again. So just start with a little bit about you, Jim, just where you came from and why you
home for me. I grew up in New York, and I grew up in a part of New York right outside the Bronx. And I guess I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. There was a lot of Italian folks, so I'm used to, like, you know, I've always had folks of different color, different cultures around me. I guess one of the things I'm noticing the most about where I grew up is, you know, we had policing used to be different. You know, police took me to my first basketball game, to my first baseball game. You know, I attended both of those events with policemen. I knew all the police, and all the police knew me in my area. So I think policing has changed a little bit. And I guess when I look back at my childhood, there's always something that really stands out to you. And I guess what stood out for me is when 1977, I know some of y'all are feeling old right now, but in 1977, I had a chance to be the first black student at an all-white school. The white school was less than 2 miles from where I grew up, but it was like night and day. And when I got to the all-white school, the first thing I can really remember is a guidance counselor coming into me on my first day. And she said to me, I want a list of 10 universities that you would like to attend. And it blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I had been at this other school from year 7 all the way to year 12. And I was a nice boy. You know, my family's good people. But nobody ever approached me to say, look, I want a list of 10 universities you plan on attending. Further that same day, I went and had a talk with the coach. And he let me know that all the students that go to Bronxville High School are expected to go to university. And I think that was the making of me, man. I ended up going to one of the universities that I listed, which was the University of Rhode Island. But it was a different ball game, man, because everywhere I went, I had wealthy, most of them were wealthy, parents telling me what I could do with my life and how I could change my life. And I will never forget those words of encouragement. I will never forget the actions. So people took me with their sons to their place of business. I got to visit where they worked at. I went on holidays, man, where I learned how to ski. You know, I went on holidays where people had pools outside their house, but they lived on a lake. And they invited me to see what that was like, because the whole thing was education can help you make this change. And someday, if this is what you want, you could have the same thing. And they always took 5 minutes to tell me that. And I thank God for my experience with that, man. So my background, and I guess my background is, you know, where I'm about today. I had an educational awakening. And I continue to do that educational thing because of my awakening. And when I look at today and I look at what's going on in America, you know, when I look at what's going on here, I'm trying to bring it back to an education. And I'm not here to pick on no teachers, because I haven't seen any kind of situations that I could say are really unfair here. I can't really say that. But I do know we have some black students or students of other cultures in situations where they might be surrounded and not being able to learn much about themselves and where they need to go. So again, that's part of my thing. What I do, man, is, you know, I talk to people. I let them know what an education can do for you. I like England, man, and I loved England because when I got here, I figured out that class, which is a class system we live in here, I always thought I could change my class and that education could help me elevate my class. Where I come from, it may be a little bit more in your color, and you can't change the shade of skin you in. You can't. It's hard to change that, man. So I, you know, made a choice early on when I met my wife to raise my kids in England. Everybody, you know, they've all been in university. They've all, you know, doing good jobs now. I just really feel you can elevate your class, and I struggle with how you may be able to do something in America with your skin color. So that's an ongoing process for me, yeah? But I do know that both here and America, I have no doubt in my mind that education is key. Education is the only thing that can free you. And I'm a follower of the Black Lives Matter movement, but I'm also saying to myself, I want to create a subsidiary, another wing. And my wing would be every educated Black life is what matters. Yeah, because if I really want to help you make a change, I'm going to have to educate you. That's going to help you make your change.
But we know, and we've talked about this before, that if you're a student of colour, especially if you're a black boy going to school in England, there are so many ways in which the odds are stacked against you, because if you look at the statistics around exclusions, the number of black kids who end up in the booths,
yeah.
Anecdotal evidence when I'm talking to people who go in and sort of have to mop up the psychological effect of all of that, especially with young black boys. So there's a sense that education can be a leveler, but there's also a sense by which built into the system is making things, is a sense of it being unlevel to begin with. What's your view on that? How would you support the young black students, and how would you support their teachers?
I guess, again, man, I'm a person of experience. I've had 3 children here. I got 2 lovely girls and 1 crazy son. They all happen to be one of like 2 or 3 in their year group in their school. So I've actually been through this as a parent. And I will say a couple of things. One is I will say, I've always tried to make sure that my kiddies had some references, some reference points at home. So I got a library with a lot of Black history books in it. I wanted them to know about themselves. My wife is white. We never referred to us being in a mixed relationship or a mixed marriage or my kids being of mixed race. We are bicultural, and there are a couple different cultures working in my family, and that makes us stronger. So my whole terminology has been about building up, not breaking down. I think my son was further ahead of his relatives in America. So I think the British education system has fared very well for my children because they're doing very well right now. There have been situations where I've had to make sure that my son and my daughters understood who they are and what their part in this game is. I'll give you, for instance, if you listening to some rap music and everybody's swearing and cursing, and you go into school listening to the same music, you got a problem if you expect some kitty to stop at the N-word, because he's singing the same song you singing. The people who made the song collected money off it. So I had to educate my kiddies in that whole scene of don't fall into the trap. Yeah? We talked a lot about your future and what you go to school for, what education is built for to help you with your future, no matter what you want to be. So as parents, we made sure that we kept our kiddies on an even keel about what they were going to school for. Yeah, and that is very important to my wife and I. So I honestly, sitting before you, cannot say that I ever had to go to school and talk to a teacher or talk to people about my students, my kids being treated as what I call unfairly. I have not had that.
What's your view on role models? I know we talked a long time ago. I've known you for a long time. And when you first came to the UK, the only sort of black figure in terms of television, a positive role model, was Trevor McDonald reading the news.
Yeah.
But I also know we've had conversations about, so often it's the black guys who are the drug dealers or the criminals or the whatever.
Yeah.
So is that still going on? Is that changed?
Well, I think if I got a good buddy who works in prison system, and he says, you know, you still got a good population of, you know, black men in prison, and you still have a good population of that. I'm going to be real redundant, man, and bring it back to an education. If you have that education, you're less likely to want to go out and commit that crime. If we as teachers and educators realize, yo, that we ain't just preparing them for GCSEs now, we're preparing you for the rest of your life. And what that really entails, man. And as far as role models go, because of my educational background and because of my experience at this all-white high school, I have no other way to say this but to tell it straight, man. Anybody can be a role model. Any white man, any white woman, you could be polka dot. But if you want to be a role model, you want to stand up to young people, you want to take that time to give them 5 minutes and talk to them, you will become that role model. You want to talk to them about your perspective on life. You want to be real with them and say, yo, man, you might have it this, it might be that. But if you take that time, anybody can fill that role model thing. So I'll give you myself as an example. I work in a school, and most of the schools I've worked in England, I've been the only black staff in the school. I've done 26 trips to New York. I've taken over 1,000 kiddies. I've probably had 4 black kiddies over the 26 years. So I've made myself a role model for all people. And I like to say that we've risen above color, because I feel if you're an educator, color is not involved in it. That is what we are. That is what we do. Yeah. And it don't make no difference what color you are. So I use myself as an example, and I think that I can get a flip-flop, because the same me as that black teacher putting in, I can have some white teachers putting in the same way.
Yeah. Okay. So education, and so much, it always comes back to education for you, and rightly so. I mean, things like, I don't know, Black History Month. So what's your view on that? And because what you're saying with your kids, it was like a sense of who you are and where you're from. Is that coming through apart from 1 month a year?
Yeah, but I think with my kiddies, it is, Ian, because it's an ongoing thing with me. I make sure they're on board and we talk real. I question some things that I may see in a school, but I don't go to every school. You know what I mean? But I do know that one of the things I want to do to move things on is I want to be available for anybody who wants me into their school for Black History Month. Go to ITL, look me up. I'll have a program ready, as I told you about, because sometimes the experience that I've had is good to share with others. And if you can share with others maybe of your kind, to say, look, man, this is what it's about. It ain't about you wearing your hat. It ain't about you being able to wear your hat backwards. It's about what this thing is going to help you with your future. Yeah? So I think that you need to learn where you come from. You need to be happy where you come from. I'm an African-American. Slavery is in my past. My great-great-grandfather would have been a slave. My dad was born in 1929. His mother was born in 1907. If you keep going back, my great-great would have been a slave. I don't think slavery should be a sensitive issue. I think we need to educate you in where you come from, which is why you need to get yourself ready for where you need to go. Yeah. So I think education and the lack of education, to me, can make more slaves out of, can make you or do a whole thing about new slaves. Because if you're uneducated and you don't have a choice of where you work and where you go to school, where you job, or where you raise your kiddies up at, to me, there's the same inkling in that as what you come from, that whole slavery deal. Yes? You look at the virus, and we have a disproportionate number of black folks dying in the virus. Well, let's go back and let's look at education. Let's be honest about this. If you lack education, then you lack the choice to live where you want to live. And you may end up living in a heavily populated area to where you don't have that space. You also going to be limited in the job you work, because you're limited in your education, which means you're going to be limited in what kind of job you could do. You might have to work 10 hours a day as opposed to the normal 8 hours, and that's not overtime. That's just what you got to work to make ends meet. That's going to cause you to have a little bit of hypertension, a little bit of high blood pressure. That will throw off your diet a little bit, because maybe you tend to eat fast food because you got to eat on the run. But when I break all these things down, sir, I keep coming back to the power of an education, what an education can do for you. Yeah?
Yeah.
So again, I keep coming back to the same thing, because I think if you educate yourself, you create choice. And we're looking at a lot of people who don't have no choice. Yeah.
What about anger? So there's a huge amount of anger boiling over all around the world now. I mean, sparked off by the George Floyd murder and all the other ones that have happened before that. How do you support young people who see themselves as disenfranchised, see themselves as victims, and rightly so. And anger is the only thing that they've got to turn to at the moment. What's your advice there? Or what would you say?
So now, again, I'm a closet historian. So I've been studying history as my life, man, and African history is my life. And I can go back. Sometimes, man, that you get stuck in this non-validation of yourself. And when you look through history, Black people as a whole have had very little opportunities to validate the wrongs that have been committed against them. Whether you look at, deaths now, if you look at, you can go back 100 years and look at deaths that were happening then. I was doing a little research the other day, and in America, there were 4,400 lynchings from 18-something up until 19-something. Not one person has ever been going to trial for a lynching. You can look at the policeman issue, and you look at, there's a side thing to it. So the cop who was involved just in the recent George Floyd murder, he also had a thing called GoFunding, and they've also raised $100,000 for that guy. So there are some things that are happening at home. The president is using some terminology. I'll get vicious dogs out. Yeah. If the looting starts, then the shooting starts. The vicious dog thing, that relates right back to Alabama. That takes you right back. So anger sometimes can be worked up. Emotion sometimes, when you don't have that reactive place you can go or that proactive place you can go, you become reactive. And then the only thing you left to do, man. And I look, man, the other day I thought about revolutions, right? And I thought about England, America, most big countries, France. Yeah. You look at some of these big, lovely countries, man, and they all started off the back of a revolution. Mm. And it's an unfortunate thing, but we as a people never been involved in a revolution. Never really been involved in one. And I guess revolutions are what they are. Some things, they don't come out nice, but you come out with change.
That's what I asked you a question. Graham Brown Martin is suggesting that there are three things in the conversations last week, three things that produce change, which is war, revolution, or a significant crisis. And significant crises are what we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, sorry. And you got all three going on right now, don't you?
Yeah.
But you got a people who have never been allowed to validate themselves, man, ever. And I think you get to a point where you only left with, like, the revolutions, man. And you look at people are saying, oh, you don't burn your neighborhood, well, they're not burning their neighborhood no more. They're going down into the cities. Mm. They're tearing apart cities. They're doing businesses. And people are saying you're destroying your businesses, but them businesses are not owned by Black people, which is another part of the issue. Yeah. So when you put all the issues into a bucket, man, how do you step up? How do you step up and put the fire out on a revolution? You come with change, and you come with change right now. Mm. You come, let's get together right now. And those, again, are skills you get from educated folk. Yeah, and we do it right now. We come together and say, let's make some changes right now.
So the idea of educated folks, so questions come in saying, how do we educate those who seem to be so uneducated when it comes to recognizing that regardless of color, we all belong to one world, and that's the human race, as we've talked about.
Yeah, hey, again,
nations.
Again, how many, to that caller, how many times have you heard this saying, mixed race? How many times have you gone into a class in school and asked how many races are there, and some students say 10, 15, 20. But if you go to the United Nations and you take a group of kiddies there, which I have done, there's one sign that says there's one race, it's called the human race. Now that I link back to school and say, well, what are we teaching, man? Yeah, let's do a little revamping in school. Have we taken the time to talk about, and just throw out a question, how many races are there? Hmm. There's one, the human race, man. So again, man, I guess I talked to a buddy of mine who's working in South Africa, and he said it's not so much that you get an education, it's what we teach and how you teach it. Yeah, and what they need to know now. You need to know what you come from. White kiddies need to know. Well, no, there's not 8 races, man. There's one race, and we're all a part of that. Yeah, we're all grouped in here together. And,
do you feel, we tried to set things, but then the COVID kicked off and everything. We tried to set things up, didn't we, where we got you and we got some BNP guy from their hometown in Derbyshire.
Yes.
And we sort of just sat in a pub and had a conversation, and then we were lining that up, and then all this sort of kicked off. But I'd really like to do that. Maybe we can do it virtually. I don't know. But do you feel that you can change people's mind? You could sit down with racist people and change their mind?
What if I didn't actually have to change their mind? What if it was better that I understood and he understood? Rather than both of us understanding each other, he understood where I was coming from and I understood where he was coming from. And I didn't necessarily have to understand his points and he didn't have to understand mine. But we could be understood as people. That's where you got all your experience from. That's where you got your fire from. And this is where I got mine from. Could we peacefully live together then if we understood each other? And I think we can, yeah? And I think we can only do that through dialogue. So you have to have the time, you have to take the chance to have your dialogue. Now, there's some people who, like a thing like slavery, might feel, yo, that's a little bit too sensitive for me. I don't really want to mess with that. But now I think you're balking out on society. I think you dropping the ball. I think you've just fumbled. Yeah, you've just on gold. Because you and taking that time to talk about it, just by saying, it's a little bit sensitive for me. That's good. Yes, that's fantastic. Because my next question could be why. You may say because, oh, I feel this and I feel that. Yo, when we start to get to feelings, we're going to start to get to change because we can change how we feel, man. Yeah, I could actually say, I got no problem with you. It's history. I understand history. But you know what they say about history? It repeats itself. If I don't deal with it, it has a chance of repeating itself. So it's very important. And I feel, man, that I'm in a blessed position, man, because I'm an educator. I am in a I do for ITL, man. You send me out to 15, 20 schools a year. Man, I'm in such a fantastic spot that I'm carrying a banner, man. And so it's a blessing. But nothing is too sensitive to discuss. And I educate the ones that are so angry and the ones that I feel are uneducated. Those are the ones I got to find a way to get to the most.
Yeah. Because Renée Edo-Lodge, she wrote the book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. And one of the things she said, when she used to try to talk to white people about race, they would sort of glaze over or get angry or work to dismiss it or talk over her. So for you, you feel we still can sit down and have a conversation, people of all colours, and I like what you said. If we get to feelings, then we can get to change. But there needs to be an openness.
I don't see how you're gonna do it. I saw the other day, man, in the paper somewhere, and I'm not sure who the man is, but they had this guy Stormzy, and he's some kind of record dude. You know, I don't listen to the music, but he's some kind of record dude. He's a big wheel out here.
He's a record dude. Yeah.
He made a statement that in growing up in England, this is what he had to go through. Then some politician came on and said, well, if he was raised where he came from, he'd have a lot less. That's not answering the question. That's not helping Stormzy in his situation. And Stormzy wasn't trying to be nasty. He was just telling you what he'd been through. But his answer, didn't necessarily answer the question. And the issue to me is you probably had a lot of other people just like that politician who said, well, if you don't like it here, go back to where you come from. That's not an answer.
No.
Going back to where I come from is not an answer. So to me, that's I'll put you in your place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Stormzy's a big deal. He probably ain't got no place right now.
Glastonbury, that's his place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the Stormzy bit threw me then. What I was going to ask you, but it goes back to the Renée Edo-Lodge work as well. This idea that it's sort of built into the system, but that whites are there and everybody else isn't, and it's hard for the whites to see. What did she say? That we tell ourselves that racism is about moral values when instead it's about the survival strategy of systemic power. So the whole system, UK and US, is built around putting white people up there. And I look in schools and I see very few head teachers of colour.
Yeah.
I see proportionally few teachers of colour.
Yeah.
When I look around the schools, the people of colour, certainly in some of the cities, tend to be the ones doing working in the canteen or whatever. So for me, there's a message that comes through, and there seem to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, so many parallels with the work that we were doing around class. And you started to talk about class, the book class, that this idea about being colourblind, and Gove talked about, yes, we're going to have colourblind schools, and again, Renier Lodge is saying, forget the colourblind thing. We need that just makes it worse, pretending that we're the same. And in the conversation I had last week with Chris Kilkenny and David Cameron about shame and about class and about poverty and equity, one of the things that came through, and it resonates with what you're saying, is that we value everybody for who they are, and the idea that you're valued for what you bring and not what you discard. And we talked about that around class. And I think what you're saying is we need to have exactly the same feeling around whatever ethnicity you're from, that it is valued and supported, not you come in the classroom, we're all the same colour here, because the structural racism, as opposed to institutional, the structural racism means we're not all the same. So let's pretend we are, and then we can do something about it. Is that how you feel things are?
I like it, and I also like the thing about, there's a statement that was made way back. So way back, man, they've been having police issues in America for years. But there was a guy in the 70s and early 80s, he talked about a change from within. And a change from within meant that they were going to recruit more kiddies, more black people to become police. And through doing that, you could create a change from within. If we go back to schools and everything you just said to me about the lack of black heads, lack of black teachers, to me, again, you know, I got to first start with, okay, the education system. Is it providing, that dream, that future that these guys could be teachers and would be fantastic teachers? Do they actually say to these kiddies, yo, man, you would be fantastic teachers someday? Remember, we're defined by what we see. And if you're a black kid not seeing many teachers, should that be a part of the curriculum? Should you be taken somewhere? If you're in university and you want to be a teacher, should you be shown someplace, be taken someplace where you could see black teachers in action? Should it be a program based on, and I'm not talking about giving you a free ride. I'm just talking about providing an opportunity. But it starts with me giving you that dream. I have got to give you that dream. I've got to give you that bit of hope that if this is what you want to be, we can make it happen. But you're going to make it happen through an education.
Yeah,
we're going to make it happen, but it's going to be through education that it happens. And again, the class thing to me is a big deal. You know, I'm stuck on, you can change your class and you can work and do something with your class. And so therefore, but to me, again, Ian, it starts with my education, man. What am I bringing to the table? I saw a program the other day I just told you about. They had two lovely young black folks talking on, I think it was BBC or somewhere yesterday. And they were asking them what do they need for change. And the young lady said, I want to work, we need more people in Parliament. And the young man was saying, we need more people here. But nobody was talking about an education. How are you going to get to Parliament without an education? What you going to have? It ain't happening, man. So I think we, as educators, are at the forefront. So I ask us, you, me, ITL, what we going to do? What we going to do to help get the message out that, this is what it's about. This is why we're in this business. And the color of your skin don't make no difference. But I first got to implant a dream. I got to implant some seeds. And I got to water that bad boy. I got to give it some sunshine. One of the things we do to New York, man, we do New York to show kiddies, what you could do with your life. Maybe someday you could work here. I work in Portsmouth. I have very few black kids here, but I got a lot of middle to low class or low class white boys who are struggling. They struggle with school. The dockyard is not open in Portsmouth anymore. They struggling, man. What they gonna do with life? So I see it and I hear it on the black end, but I also am fortunate enough to see it on the white end and to know that it ain't a white and black problem, a class problem. It's an education problem. But I got quite a few young boys who are struggling, man. What am I going to do, sir? What work am I going to do? So I'm fortunate, man. Which is why I'm here talking with you today. I'm fortunate, man. I'm fortunate to be able to see it from both angles. I'm fortunate to be able to grow up in an area where to make a change, and the only change I could make was to educate myself. I am so fortunate. I had white men taking interest in me. Yeah, they didn't care about their color, man. They took an interest in me. I'm the blueprint, man, for what we could do to make change.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. We're fortunate to have you on the team as well. One last thing, and you said, what can ITL do? What can we do? So what, from what you're saying, there's a longer term, it's about the education, educating everybody, giving everybody dreams, everybody opportunities, helping everybody know where they come from and value everybody regardless of where they've come from and and making sure we value what they bring. What short term, what can we do tomorrow? What can teachers do tomorrow with their children, whether we're primary or secondary, and they've seen stuff kicking off on the news, they've seen stuff on social media, they're angry, they're scared. What happens tomorrow, Friday?
Tomorrow, I think the number one thing we need to do is develop an across-the-board expectation. Here's an expectation, and I don't really care what color you are. I don't care what sex or religion you are, but here's an expectation. I'm setting this expectation because I know someday this will help you out this way. That's one thing. The second thing we do is we talk. We say, I'm going to say to Ian Gilbert in my class, year 9, Ian, how you feel about what's going on in America? See, the second I do that, the second I do that, I'm starting to open a door. Ian's going to feel free to tell me what's up, what's going on. Ian might not see the sense in getting an education. That's where the trick comes in for me. How do I then plant them seeds? What do I do to show him? We're defined by what we see. Do I just talk to Ian? Or do I actually take Ian someplace and show him this and show him that? Do I introduce him to some people who can talk to him on a different front? Yeah, I'm an educator, man. My plan and my thing tonight will be, okay, what do I do? How do I bring education into the game? How do I open up? How do I talk to them? I said to you earlier, every Black life has to be educated. That matters to me. Yeah, I like Black Lives Matter. I'm saying an education will give you something to matter for, because it starts with you mattering to yourself first, and an education helps you matter to yourself. So that's a vital thing to me. When all this is overdue, man, you're going to sit down. I've already sent you a little bit about what I want to do. Yeah. But, man, we have an opportunity not to just talk, which is what I love about you. We don't just talk. We do. we don't just talk, baby. We do. Yeah. And then when this thing is over, we're going to get back to the doing.
We're just trying to make sure we're doing as much as we possibly can with the gifts we've been given one way or another across all of independent thing and across all the schools that we're working with. So, and that's why I wanted to talk to you. I just wanted your perspective on it. I'm sure some people have different perspectives, different ideas.
Yeah.
I think the idea of we talk and we value each other and we focus on the power of an education. I think those three things, you're not going to go too far wrong if we start there, as well as we are open to structural racism and not colorblind, not pretending it doesn't go on.
Yeah, hey, dude, if we treat it like a pie, like a pizza, a big pizza, and a big American pizza got 16 slices with it, yeah? And everybody got a slice of that pie that you bring it to the table, yeah? My slice of the pie is the power of an education and what it can do for you. Somebody else's piece of the pie may be careers. Somebody else's piece of the pie may be math, English, science. But if we get that pie theory going, that pie gonna taste good. Anybody having a slice gonna be content with that pizza because we put enough into the ingredients, man, to make that bad boy just as tasty. And everybody, we might have a section that's just vegetarian. We might have a section that might not have this spice or that spice. But we're gonna make that pie, and the only way we make that pie work is if we work together.
Yeah, yeah.
But my slice of that pie, man, is education and the power of it.
School is pie. I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Jim. I know you've got to go back. You're in school. You've got to go back and work with lovely kids and everything. Thank you for that. We'll put that out with all the other webinars that we're putting out now. It's great to be able to have this sort of an instant feedback and keep the conversation going and hopefully be of some help at times where everything's crazy.
Yeah, my man, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Stay safe. Keep going.
Take care, babe. You too, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.